before I get started. So thanks for joining us on this Arts and Resilience lecture series. We have a really talented Houston-based artist, Danielle Anguilu, who will be joining us. But before I get to him, I just want to mention a little bit about his background. He's going to talk about his art, so I'm going to skip that part. But I just want to mention that he started painting graffiti at an early age. He's traveled kind of all over, including US, Mexico, Peru, Spain, and Italy, painting murals and in various art exhibitions. He's been commissioned by Converse, Neiman Marcus. He's had residencies at the Metropolitan Transit Authority in Houston and at Northeastern University in Boston. Currently, his work focuses on painting public spaces in the Houston area, and he works in collaboration with local businesses and homeowners. So if you have lived in Houston much, I am 100% sure you have seen his work. He's been a painter for 25 years, and he has a really awesome story and method to how he works. So before I toss it over to Daniel, I just want you all to know you can feel free to use the chat if you have any questions. We're going to make this more of a conversation, and he's going to show us some of his work. So I'm going to toss it over to Daniel, and Daniel, I'll give you the description of the slides when we get to it.
Okay. Hey, good afternoon. How you guys doing? My name is Daniel. Last name's Anguilu. I am a painter here in Houston. I've been active for the past 25 years, just approaching art with a level of just researching and trying to understand what it means to paint, not only in public, but how to present my artwork as in relation to who I am as a human being. For a long time, I've painted without permission, so it was a good time for me because it makes it a lot fun and a lot easier to have this type of approach. But as time goes by, art itself started taking me different places and with different teachings of how to approach my practice, and also my background as a person in search even for identity. I became to study because I wanted to add more of my background and find some answers to my questions. So I started using a lot of native designs, that I was familiar with when I was younger in Mexico and in traveling here to the United States. I kind of miss being around colorful spaces, and I began to create them. There wasn't very much, so I began to paint some of the things that I thought were important to have in public, and that has allowed me to enter different spaces in which art it's promoted. Museums and galleries, and different institutions that help artists express themselves. But that still wasn't what I was looking for. It's still, those are tools that I use and that I really enjoy, but that's not what I'm really focusing. And I think I've come to an understanding that maybe there's never going to be a time where I'm really content with saying, okay, this is it, this is where I belong. And I think that also comes from learning more about my own background, as a person that had to migrate from place to place, first within my own country. I had to move from where my family has roots to a bigger city to look for work. I was a kid, so then we've been always traveling around. But lately, I've been established here, and it's nice to have a home, and also to have a place where I can see myself, in some of these buildings and these different places that allow my art to create, to live, to have a home. But by saying that, also it's important for me to mention that that was never the intention of my work to belong to me. It always has been a tool for growth and for research, but it was never the intention for it to become myself, to be viewed as an artist or to be treated as an artist. I think my work has a level of, I wanted to still be anonymous. I wanted to still be within the the outside of what we know, what we know, what how things work. I still want my work to be part of that, um, the culture of not belonging to a certain person. You know, art to me has always been very much attached to a system that I don't understand very well. Whether the results of them are for what I intend to paint. So I still navigate that, you know, by allowing it to be part of, not only to be anonymous, but to reflect my opinions and views about certain issues that I think are important for us to have in public, but to not belong to anyone. It's I think public art is a good place to have not non-advertisement, you know, with any commercial aspect to it, just to belong to a form of communication. And I've been trying to push for that for a long time. And I think it also, you know, the way that our city now has more murals and more art installations, and just a lot more outlets where people can express themselves. My practice, I think, it doesn't belong to that. You know, it kind of it's I think it's still trying to survive with that. You know, but as always, you know, and if it live without those outlets, so I think it'll still be present. And I think I can start showing you guys some of this some of my work. Maybe that'll be easier for this conversation to happen. Maybe we can show a few slides of what I just try to express. Can
Yeah,
we
we're
show
just,
some of those pictures?
yeah, we're about to put your slides up. Just give us 1 second.
Okay. And at any time, you know, I think I'm still not so used to speaking in public. That's the reason why I paint. So it's still difficult to try to have conversations, you know, because I think with my practice, I've learned to the less you say, sometimes the more you can come across, you know. So I started using some of these quotes next to my work, um, because I've realized that it was easier to communicate. So you could skip that one. That was at the airport, but you can skip to another one. Okay, so that was in Spanish. El problema no es la inmigración, el problema es la educación. So, you know, I started to realize that there wasn't really that much around that was speaking on the subject of what it really means to be an immigrant, you know. And I think it's because we're not educated enough to understand that this has been a practice that most of us have been part of at some point. So I didn't understand how, you know, when I watch the news or when I hear these conversations, why is it that we don't have that understanding of what it really means to just be a person moving from one place to the other without being any kind of wrongdoing on the part of the person, you know. And as a person that has been called an immigrant or illegal alien or just not wanted because of where I've traveled from, or where, because I'm from where I'm going. So it's kind of like I think we need more education in that part, you know. And also I think it's important for me sometimes to write these quotes in a language that the people that might feel left out can relate to. You know, it might help them a little bit understand that, you know, it's not your fault. Maybe there is no fault. It's just we haven't really got to the point where we can communicate. So that's where that quote comes from. And then I use my work. I paint something really big so that someone can read those few words. So that's just has been my approach to art. We can skip to another one. Okay, this one. So within the process of learning native I don't even want to call it art, but native information, information that the people that created the symbols and this aesthetic value to what we know of native art. I've struggled trying to find meaning for it into I've been lucky enough to be around people that have a better understanding of what those things are without really calling it something. And I've been trying for a long time to represent this this language, you know, but also to know what I'm saying. So in this painting, it's a hummingbird, and it's kind of flying to up to the sky, and then there's a story about how the universe was started, and it has a hummingbird in it, and a lot of people have held on to these teachings, and now I'm just trying to have them represented out in the community so that maybe somebody can find me and tell me more about it, and then we can you know collaborate and figure out what these things really mean, which we're never going to know, but we can try to find a connection between us and the first humans that have been painting here. So my approach is more of an artistic approach. I want to be able to connect my work to those first humans that started carving stones and painting in caves and then building temples and building structures. I want to be. I don't want to lose that string to them. So that's what this painting is reflected on. We can move to another one. Okay. So recently I was asked to paint at what was once a church, and I found it really interesting because I'm not a religious person or a spiritual person. I think I don't know where I stand with those with in reference to that. But it was hard for me to paint at a place with at one point people called home. People would just go in there and pray, and you know I don't know. I kind of felt guilty about painting what was once a church. At the same time, I was happy to be able to to maybe help some of the concepts that I know belong to some of these teachings that they have in these places of worship. But it's no longer a church, so I guess now it's up for grabs. So I kind of put two elements of um it's it's called atla chinoli, which means water and fire. So it's just the essence of everything that comes to be has come from elements that meet each other, and then from there something else comes about, and that's how life is, or I understand life to be. So this painting is a reflection of that, and I'm happy that is at a on a structure that we see as a place to learn what life is. So I think it worked. Hopefully it worked. We can skip to another one. All right, this one. So I've been told that every time you see some of this like mouth and tongue sticking out of this native art that we still have around, that it means fertility. That it means that life is it's has a ground, or has life has a home with what's where we're stepping on the ground. So it's like saying life is a part of everything, this home, this planet, but we're grounded. And I don't know really at the beginning of with like native people at the time that painted some of this this type of art really meant for that to be the case, but I just kind of roll with it. I like it. I like the fact that maybe you feel like, okay, well, there's a good place for me to take a picture. you know, I like that people use my work for that, but also I want to be able to have I want people to have some kind of substance, but without me saying what it is. I let people kind of figure out on their own. But also, it's important for me to have this aesthetic, this almost like a native approach to, or a native look to my work, just so that I think I think I think everyone that lives here, that is moving to this place, or that somehow has a connection to this continent, should maybe they want to be connected to some of these the people that were here before they came here. Maybe they want to learn more about it, and respect the people that are traveling this continent. And I think to me it's more of a, how do we help people understand that this is this place had a home before you made it home. So some of these paintings have that approach to where, like, I don't want to tell you how you should feel about it, but at the same time, this is this has been a home to too many different other cultures and communities. And some people that came down were welcome, some were not very welcome, and that's still happening now. As we travel from one place to the other, I bring my own culture, I bring my own teachings, and they're connected to those first humans that live here and that have roots here. So we can move to another one. Okay, this one. So this is I painted a George Floyd piece that, like, maybe the second day after we heard about him, about what happened to George Floyd, and I had already been told early enough that he was from Houston originally, and I wanted to pay a tribute to George. But also, I grew up watching, some of my graffiti friends take an approach of remembering the people in the community. So there's always these rest in peace murals that we have around, in different cities and different communities. And a lot of them are from community members, not necessarily, someone that is a politician or someone that has made major contributions, or what we think of major contributions. I at that time I still thought of George as someone that has a connection to my home. And a couple of our friends, we felt like it was important to have to have him in our space where we create. But then it's been defaced a couple of times. I think like 4 times people have come and have written, racial slurs over it. And at first we'll just go and clean it, and we never made a big deal about it. We just deal with the consequences. But this last time, and this is what has always happened when you paint in public. Sometimes, people have access to these paintings, and they take pride, or almost like ownership of them, and which is fine. To me, that's the way things should be. But there was a news reporter that passed by, and he wasn't very happy with the racial slurs, so I had to cover it up. Luckily, I had some uh, some paper and tape, so I covered it. And then the following week, it was national news and even international news. So I was getting, emails from people in China and Europe and other places that wanted to know more about what happened. Um, I don't. I think, me personally, I think that people have a right even to deface something. At the end of it is just paint. We'll paint over it. Um, but people also have the right use the tools that they have to protect something. In this case, the chief of police came and met with us, and it was kind of weird to have the police now kind of telling us that they're going to protect our artwork when for years and years that wasn't the case. So I've been learning as I go along and just try to be more cautious. At the same time, still have a pure approach to it, where like, well, it's yeah, that one was the before it was defaced. But I still think that it's a safe space to express yourself, and I want to push for more spaces like this where people can just show up and paint what they feel without any restrictions. I think they're important, and then have the community take ownership of them if they feel connected to it, and I think it's a different approach from what I see happening with around the city. There's more of a already curated murals that have an intention behind them and not much just purely expression. And I think it's they both can live together, but I see my practice kind of little by little disappearing. But I think that's good too. Some things can only be there for so long, and then we just have reference of some kids or some adults that were kids at one point and never knew how to grow up. And I think this still kind of connects me to that. I love graffiti. I never really talk bad about it, but at the same time, I'm open to hear how other people feel about it. We can skip to another one.
So Daniel, there's a
Uh-huh.
question and a comment. It
Uh-huh.
says, it's from Nate. It says, it is really interesting that you were inspired to create art because you missed the color from your childhood. I did not notice the lack of color in many US cities, but once you pointed it out, it is quite striking. Do you have any thoughts about these cultural differences in city planning or spaces?
Yeah, so I think that's that's a heavy question for me because I do question city planning. I question the intention of it. I question how people use art to attract, you know, buyers to a community. I question those things. I question how sometimes culture is used as a tool to increase value of properties, but at the same time, like I understand where I am as far as how capitalism works, and I'm just I can't really have an opinion on that type of planning. But personally, growing up in Houston, it was really gray, for a long time. And I think versus Mexico, where I'm from, you can walk to downtown and you could see a church and a temple next to it, one older than the other one, and then you can see the murals that have the history of them, of those events and how wide those things exist. And I think that we don't have that here that much. We don't have that 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 connection to us and the past. So it's I mean, even me, like I don't really paint those things. I come from a graffiti background, but I'm not a muralist. Like I don't put myself with that's a word that carries a lot of weight, because I grew up watching these murals from what we call muralists, and all of them had this past and present and the struggle of people reflected in their murals. And I wanted to have the same approach, but with a contemporary approach, where like I don't have to use the images that they used, but at the same time be just as effective. Um, but I think more color better, but more education for people to demand that they really get, if there's public funding, that they really get what they're looking for within their communities, and not just have another advertisement almost forced into their communities. So I think it's a fine line. hopefully I answered the question and I didn't diverge much from it. On this one, this building, I've been painting here for over 12 years, and I kind of manage this building. They call it graffiti park. It's east of downtown. Uh, we produce a lot of artwork there, and elections were coming, and I think people need to go out and vote. It's very simple, and you could see it from the freeway. So I was kind of happy to just have people get out and raise their voice. That's it. We can move to another one. Okay, so who do you call when cops murder? Like, so a long time ago, I have a friend, and his uncle was murdered by the cops here in Houston. He was thrown over the bayou, and we painted a mural to for him, for his family to have um, some kind of healing. That's how I see some of these murals. They help communities heal, but also, we're still angry about it. So so that's what I was saying earlier about how do you how do you use less words and still have a message? You know, how do you narrow it down? And I think that's like nowadays, with memes and things like that, people are accomplishing that. And I've been trying to do that for years too, where like just have a punchline and then roll with it. So I think, who do you call when cops murder? Who do you call? So it's still a question. We can go to another. Okay, so this one's a little longer. Uh, so the population doesn't know what's happening, and it doesn't even know that it doesn't know. That's from Noam Chomsky, and he's a professor. But it has to do with what's happening now, in in Ukraine, I guess, and in Palestine and Syria, and a lot of different places, even here in the United States. Um, I think we don't know, but I think we don't even know where to start to look of where do we look for actual information. And I think lately it's been taken away from us, even access to a link of how do we know what's going on, and so we can make educated decisions of who we're going to elect, or where we're going to send funds, or how do we help. And this no war, is fairly, um, very much to the point. But then I also use some of the Palestinian, colors in it, and then the Ukraine colors in it, and some reference to a Picasso painting that's called Guernica, which pretty much, emphasizes on the use of weapons to terrorize communities, for political, gain, or acquire more land. I don't know. I struggle with that. So the only thing I can do sometimes is just put it out on the wall, and maybe while I'm painting, people will walk by, and then I can have the conversation with them. So I think my work's kind of therapeutic for myself. It kind of helps me navigate those questions that I have by just putting myself out there, and being accessible to opinions other than mine. And this one actually just, I think, recently was also defaced, which is cool. I mean, I didn't think it was going to last very long. But and then some people don't really read that much. They're kind of, maybe two, three words, they just, whatever, or they don't know what the Palestinian flag looks like. So it's interesting sometimes when you paint out in public, and the different people that approach, or they hate what you're doing. So it's cool. I like it. We can move to another one.
So we have another
Uh-huh.
comment/question from Miss Walter. So that's awesome. Law enforcement is attempting to protect the art or the message of the artists, but correct me if I'm wrong. I'm hearing you say what the community does to the art is more important, meaning if members of the community deface it, you're okay with your message being vandalized and not necessarily fixing it because it's telling of the times for that community. She just wants to know if she's understanding that correctly.
Yeah, that's correct. Like I said earlier, I'm not against graffiti. I think that it's a tool. I'm not for whatever people their intentions are for defacing a painting. But if people want to take that approach, that is what that's on them, and then they deal with the consequences. Me sometimes I'll I fix it just because I'm sensitive for the community. Um, but I've sat there before and I'm like, wow, somebody that actually has like these racist motives that maybe never held a spray paint can in their hands are willing to get out and express themselves like we do. So it's kind of it's it's different from me, because I do get angry and I don't like it. At the same time, it'll be hypocritical for me to tell someone that what they shouldn't do. You know, all I can say there's consequences. And because it happens often, and not all the time the racial slurs, sometimes it's just scribbles or some other things. So that's the question. When are we okay with something being defaced or attacked versus who makes that decision? We can see something that we don't care about get defaced and we're completely okay with it, but then something that we feel other people care about, it gets defaced and then we're uproar about it. So it's a very public art can be very useful for that, because I think at the end of it, it could just be painted over. It's not the end of it. It could be repainted. um but it's a conversation. So thank you for asking that. No, I didn't like that it was a racial slur. um at the same time, like I did clean it just to be uh respectful to the community that cares about it. But I also have conflicts because I like the fact that somebody actually got out that maybe doesn't have anything with me in common, but they were forced to express themselves against something. But doesn't take away where, like, well, there's consequences. So
So
hopefully
that,
I answered that question.
yeah, you did, and I think you actually segue into another question that's in the chat from Mary. If it's okay, I'll just toss it
Yeah.
your way. So Mary sharing that your work is powerful. Have you ever been confronted or frightened by conversations you've had with people on the streets? She applauds the work you're doing, and she says it's very brave.
Yeah, all the time. All the time I get confronted all the time, and even now I'm more careful, but even uh not spelling something correctly, grammar, that was my thing. English is not my first language, so I still struggle with it sometimes, but I try my best to have. Now I'm more careful because, like, people will approach me, they'll be really angry that I misspelled something or I didn't use something correctly. But when it comes to, like, even this quote, Texas homo mass incarceration, voter suppression, uh a lot of people are angry about it. They don't see Texas as that. you know um but I'm okay with them being angry, and then I put barbed wire. There's more to Texas. I mean, there's even the history of Texas, and how it came about. I struggle, um, wanting to tell people that we're using the space that we call home, and as a form of a statement to oppress people. It's like there's some people so proud of how we incarcerate people and how we stopping people from voting and expressing themselves. or at the ballot box. And there's a lot of people that take pride on that, and I struggle with it. So I go out and paint this piece, and then 2 3 days later somebody has to go and paint something on it, and I go back and I fix it, and then I have to deal with people coming by and like, hey, what are you writing that? Why are you, what was wrong with you? But I'm okay with it. I can back up what I'm saying. And I always try to have the quotes that I use are very much. I don't think they're questionable. We do have mass incarceration. We do have voter suppression. So if you want to talk about it, I'm down for it. Let's talk about it. At the end of it, it's going to exist whether you like it or not. Because I worked hard to have spaces where I can raise my voice. So we can move to another one. Okay. Good guys with guns. That one just the Uvalde PD. Just kind of being funny about what I heard, like, who protects us, who doesn't, what is this protection we're looking for? And, same thing, Texas, we take pride of being really full of this how tough we are. And, and then we see cops running. It's and not helping us when we need them. Um, it's questionable. And I don't mean to offend cops. Uh, but if you're offended, maybe work on it. We as the public have the right to question what you're doing artistically. It's not to offend you, it's maybe to find other outlets to fix some of these things that happen in our communities. So we can move to another one. So that I think that one we already talked about it. Okay, so that one is it's called the Harrisburg Art Museum. It's on the east side, is right on Harrisburg and before Dumbo. You will so we've been working on that place for the past maybe 15 years. The idea was to have a home for um, freedom of expression, for people to have a community also around, the practice that we have, using spray paint. Some people that come from graffiti, some people that come from street art, muralists, everyone that has a presence on public space. But we wanted to call it a museum because I question that too. What is a museum? How do museums work? Who's behind these museums? Why is it that they charge for museums? How does this work? So I thought about it, and I'm like, well, the only way that I could understand how museums work, I have to open my own, and then from there see what people, if people tell me, oh, you're not a museum because you're not doing A, B, and C. And once people started visiting the building, I will question them like, okay, so what's, if you think this is not a museum, what is a museum? Because I'm showing exhibitions, we're curating exhibitions, we are exhibiting national and international artists. We are, you know, a functional museum, and it's accessible and free and it's community based. But I guess that was is not something people are really um I don't know. I think because we don't believe that we have a reference of this thing is a museum, and something that doesn't look like it's not. So I wanted to create something very big, and then call it a museum, and have people really have those conversations about it. Why does this place exist, and who runs it, and how does it work? Um, I don't know. It's still there. You guys can still visit if you want. This is the Harrisburg Art Museum, and it's a museum. We can move to another one. Okay, so this one I just recently painted. I finished painting it about a week ago, and it's at a home. It's a residence near my home, and they reached out to me. They wanted a painting outside their house, and a lot of times I do that. I I um, I make friendships with the community, and really using their space for just to have artwork. No nothing involved. Just if they want to help with materials, or if they want to be able to fund it somehow, then I'm open for it. But that's not the main objective. It's really how do we make how do I use your space as a form of expression, but not have that normal art approach to it. So it's um, a work in progress for me of the same approach that I've had all the time, just using space without charging for it, but still getting it out there. So it's working so far. Do we have any more? Oh, this is an old one. That's just me asking someone if I can paint something in their walls. This is a long time ago. This is like 16, 17 years ago. And I don't know. It's like the first time that I started like kind of painting birds without using graffiti, aesthetics to it, just kind of like disattaching myself from it, and just doing something that wasn't what I was used to painting. That was a couple of years I've been trying. So this is like the first one that actually came out like, oh, okay, cool. I guess I can roll with this. So it's a reference for me of how I learned to build a style with my work. Oh yeah, this one. This one's at the Baha'i Center, and same thing. They approached me. They wanted a mural. It's an old mural, and they didn't have any funds, so I called up a couple of people, friends that I have, that have access to materials, and so then I was able to provide the Baha'i Center with a mural without any type of money involved. No, no, it's not free though. That's the thing, is it's it's hard to talk about it because it's my approach to some of these murals. It's very much uh, a collaborative effort, but I really try to find a way to not have money involved. So some of them are more commercial that I do take just so that I can fund this type of project. So I've always been able to navigate that. I take some commercial work, and then with that money, I spend on materials for the next big murals like this one. We can move to another one. Yeah, it's another, just kind of, you know, native concepts into a painting. Um, it's an old painting too. Do you have another one? Okay, pandemic survival since 1492. I think this was during COVID, or whatever pandemic you want to call it. And I think we had the conversation earlier about medicine and how does that work and what does it mean. And me, once I learned the history of the foundation of a lot of this of the continent, and when these pandemics came about, from the islands, and then they move into the mainland, and how many pandemics that we have, and how many of other germs that killed the population. I've known this history since I was a kid of how pandemics work. I never thought I would live through one, but it's important for us to learn that they shaped who we are. We have migrations, and we have all these other, you know, more recent issues that are still the effects, like the consequences of those pandemics that the pandemic different pandemics that we've had since at least 500 years. And I would say that recent pandemics 500 years ago, to me they're still recent because of what the consequences were. you know so looking where we are now and how we approaching that, for me it was important to learn about not only what happened to the native people, to my ancestors, or to the people that I come from, and but also find ways to that still exist of how a lot of people survived. Sometimes we think about what happened in different places, and we just know what happened, but then we forget that people learn how to survive. And I was able to, during that time, I was introduced to different techniques that people used back then, such as how to use water, how to use sun, how to use, all these things that I had already had adapted to my life that made it easier for me to approach this other pandemic. So that's why I think native art is very important to have in our communities, because our environment dictates our survival. Oh, enjoy the collapse. And I did that one with some friends from Spain. They were visiting part of a museum exhibition, and I think it was predictable. This is before pandemic, so it was uh, funny to us at the time, and then a few years later we started thinking about it, like, whoa, man, we painted that, and it's kind of like really happening now. What is collapsing? I don't know. Maybe some of the systems that we've had for a long time that were not working, hopefully we can enjoy their collapse, or is it something else? It's a conversation piece, I guess. Okay. So I think I cover a lot of that, a lot of who I am as an artist and as a person, and I'm happy about how these things worked, how this conversation has taken its place. I'm very comfortable, and thank you for allowing this space for me and for being supportive of artists expressing themselves, putting us in the spot to talk about
Yeah.
who we are and what we're doing.
Oh, sorry, I was just agreeing with you. That was awesome, Daniel. There's actually another question in the chat. If you have a minute, I'll just relay
Yeah.
it. It's from Renee. Thank you for sharing your stories. Being brave and vulnerable is something artists struggle with, especially when your heart is attached to the art. What advice do you have about your journey through expression and bravery?
It's I'm not a wise man, I don't think. And I think I look for that. I look for people to show me, not to tell me, but to show me. And I think that's for when I didn't understand what I was doing, to where, like, now I have kind of a clue of what I'm doing, but it's by doing. It's not by expecting. It's not by what's in it for me, or what's going to happen with this. I think a lot of artists struggle with that. I from the beginning that I started painting, there was no end result, you know, and I think that would probably be my advice. Just if you really want to take any type of skill and use it as a form of expression and communication. I can only speak on that. If you want to use it as a form of expression and communication, I think don't think about the outcome of, or what's there for me, because I think it's, if you're communicating, that's it. That's all you can do. Just communicate and keep on rolling. I think I think there's more of a struggle to right now for me. Is like, okay, how do I continue to communicate? How do I continue to express these opinions? How do I do that? And less of like, oh, okay, how do I, am I really an artist? Am I not an artist? What's going on? I don't question it. So just practice it and get out there, and that's it.
That's wonderful. I want to just give you a couple more comments. People are sharing in the chat. Crystal shared she loves your work. She follows you on Facebook. Great to hear your insight. Mike shared, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Very grateful for all that you create. And Olga shared, thank you very much for the great talk. Very impressive.
Thank you.
So yeah, I will echo everyone's sentiments. You presented information in such a way that we got to really understand your story. And I think you are actually quite wise. So that absolutely comes across. So you don't have to say that, but one thing you shared with me, maybe as a parting question, is we were all chatting earlier that you don't sign your murals. Can you
Yeah.
just tell us a little bit about that? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. So I think it started with graffiti, where like you you have to build a style that's recognizable, and then you could write whatever you want. Uh, I I never wanted to be part of this advertising culture that we have. I didn't want to become a billboard. I didn't want to become a like a commercial, or have anything attached to me as a person. Um, because I've always knew that with what I was doing is just what you're doing. There's no there's no more to it. You just do it, you leave it alone. And the day that you want to not do it anymore, you don't even think back, of any type of reward or anything like that. Um, so I thought about it for a long time that if once you sign your murals or installations, your paintings, the action, once you sign it, I think it kind of it has an attachment. And I didn't want to be attached to my work. I think it's still like a work in progress of what that really means to me. But also, I'm happy to know that I'm not advertising, that I'm not trying to sell something, that I'm not part of that culture, that I'm truly just trying to express something and nothing else. So that's where not signing my work comes from.
Yeah, it's very clear you're really authentic in what you do and how you practice your art. So thank you so much for your time. I want to be respectful of your time and everyone's time here. If you're not following Daniel, you can find him on social media. We have his information on our website. And just a couple more comments. Keisha wanted to share, this was great. Thank you for sharing your art with us. So lots of positive reviews.
Thank you.
And for those of you who are attending the lecture, the next Arts and Resilience event will be on March 7th with author Samuel Shen. It'll be at the TMC library, but also at Zoom at 11 a.m. So it's a different time, different day of the week, but just put that on your calendars. And again, thank you, Daniel. This was amazing.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.